Welcome everybody to the webinar where we will talk about how you can optimize your presence on social media. Today's keynote speaker is Ben Josen, who is global leader of UNA and segmentation services in Denmark. My name is Søren Andreasen and I'm heading up the UNA and segmentation services in IPSOS in Denmark. There will be plenty of room for Q&As in the end of the presentation. Before I continue, we will turn off the cameras. Having them on sometimes cause unstable connections. You know, one of the topics we have invested in is enabling our clients in their digital marketing strategy. Typically, a digital marketing strategy evolves around the identification of specific or small groups of like-minded individuals, their key interests or preferred communication and marketing actions tailored to their preferences. Ultimately, the objective is to know the target audience so well that messages get delivered highly personalized through the target's preferred communication channels, of course, with the right message. Business-wise, the goal is to meet the customer's needs more effectively and efficiently, making interactions faster and easier, and consequently increasing brand awareness, preference, and loyalty, increasing return of investment through a holistic marketing campaign. Can you flip the slide, Ben, please? The rise of digital marketing has been rooted in the new marketing thinking, where penetration growth is key, reaching as many people as possible. But being bombarded with so many messages, even more than before, it is hard to get through the clutter. Digital marketing will help at broad reach, but not everyone is the same. Not everyone uses the same digital media or has the same expectations. Big data certainly help understand who connects in what matter and has specific interests, but it does not fully help understand why people connect with brands in a specific category the way they do. It does tell us who we are, what we do, what we're interested in, but it does not fully register how we want to be addressed in a specific category, what tonality resonates with us, which motivations trigger brand preference, etc. So we need to find a way to enrich the behavioral data with insight about category needs and motivations. Let me give you a few examples. How many times has it occurred to you looking at something in Google? It could be cars, cultural events, or clothes, and then you open your Facebook or any other website, and you saw exactly the same topic appears as an ad as you were looking at before. That means that someone was applying digital marketing or micro-targeting. Here you can just see a few examples I received recently. I started looking for a leasing car, and I see ads on cars in my Facebook feeds. One of my interests is Tour de France, and I googled why Jakob Fuglsang wasn't a part of this year's tour. Also, I googled the launch time for Disney Channel, as my kids really love Disney. And I get related ads or groups on Facebook or any other media sites about these specific topics I'm interested in. When companies typically go through this process of digital marketing, various steps are involved to put the personalized targeting to action. Often brand managers and CMI explore the key targets in the category, the needs, behaviors, and the connection with brands. From there, they develop their brand positioning and structure the portfolio. To be able to find key targets in the digital space separately, social listening is conducted to define different groups of people based on their digital behavior, their broader preferences, media and sites they use, etc. In some occasions, additional search terms are used as an expression of the needs people have. Either way, a term we often encounter in this context is tribes, which is groups of people with similar interests and digital behavior. But at some point, these two ways of looking at consumers, which are category needs and behavior on the one hand, and media tribes on the other hand, need to be reconciled to develop the last two steps: personalized communication and brand expressions, and plans guiding what media types and means to use for which targets. And sometimes even the initial steps are skipped and all is based on big data. In other situations where consumer research and digital data is aimed to build on each other. Still, research is developed separately from linkage with digital media. First, survey is used to create segments. A typing tool is created that is applied to newly gathered data from people that visit the website, respond to specific emails, or that are even newly recruited from a database. From here, the algorithms are created to allocate the full database to the segmentation, and only then the personalized communication and media planning can be applied.
So in both of these examples, research and target definition are treated as two separate consecutive steps. But what if we could make this process more efficient? What if we can set up the whole process in such a way to facilitate a new way of working to not only define segments that inform brand positioning, but at the same time and without additional survey, address the target definition for personalized content development and media planning. That way, we could help both clients and their partners connect these different steps and at least anticipate how the consumer targets will feed into tribes, the communication development and the media planning. A key part of the success of this is connecting the wealth and strength of behavioral data by layering on top survey data regarding needs, attitudes, motivations, etc., to understand the why of the behaviors and the interest. Each of these data sources have their own added value. The behavioral data is very detailed, spanning many different areas we hardly can touch upon in surveys, and it starts from real choices and real behaviors. But these large amount of data are also unstructured. So what if we could structure it with segmentations and thereby rise above the descriptive of these behavioral data? As I mentioned earlier, big data often cannot tell the why of behaviors. That is why we combine it with survey data. Though it's more limited in time and scope, it provides the human insights in their needs and desires and collected systematically applying the latest techniques. That way, we not only know what and how people behave in real life, but also why they behave this way. In the end, we cover the key information to impact your business, and we use advanced analytics to combine both data sources. Typical business questions when this will benefit evolve around who to target, how to reach this target, with what message to target, and with what means to target. In the end, as Søren said, it all boils down to improving the ROI of your digital strategy. It will help improve clear-cut decisions based on consumer insights in your target audiences to justify the resources allocated, to improve the creation of specific content for specific audiences and targets, as well as plan and select the media types, channels, and sometimes titles, and possibly decide on sponsorships, meaning what partnerships to set up. As I will explain later, this does require a unique way of working, but nevertheless, we always adopt a four-step approach to complete this journey together with your teams, leveraging the expertise we have within IPSOS. Per phase, we define clear objectives, steps and tasks to guide the whole team through the process. Each phase has clear outcomes that allow you to go through the next phase. The first phase is about truly getting to know your stakeholders, your organization, your expectations, actions, plans, the business context, etc., to ensure we design the project so that we can deliver on the business objectives. The second phase is the research phase, which for now we're focusing on quant specifically, but it can also include other tools. Next is a phase where we deliver the insights to your stakeholders, help them prioritize targets and think about possible next steps for activation, and more specifically the media space. And finally, it's about business implementation, ensuring the targets are being used and create impact for you. As such, this flow seems generic for any segmentation study, yet in each phase we address specific topics to feed into the micro-targeting objective. This means we need to rethink how we work and what we deliver in each step, and we'll touch upon each of these in the next few slides. So let's focus with the first step, discovery and framing. It means we need to create a different team on our and your side. We need to dive specifically into your media process, internally and externally before we start off. And we need to define upfront what databases are key in the whole media targeting process. And again, whether those are internal or external. In the initial stage of discovery and framing, we need to, as I said, create a different team. In doing so, we have to be aware that tapping into your need for digital marketing requires thinking beyond CMI and sometimes even beyond marketing roles we connect with in typical segmentations. Other experts on your side come into play, like your media experts, communication, e-commerce, etc. And this means we need to look beyond our segmentation research teams as well within Ipsos. We need to include our strategists, our communication, our media experts, and even sometimes our own data specialists to mirror your broader group of stakeholders. But it doesn't mean that everybody needs to be involved continuously in the whole process. We just need to make sure we consult them. We know what they need to move on. We need to know what they require to actually put this all into practice. We should and never and cannot assume that the segmentation will work for your agencies, media and data partners if we have not consulted them. Plus, we shouldn't assume that we all know how this works up front. There is a lot of technical stuff to sort out that goes beyond the research, and we need to make sure we understand the language and the needs of those in media and the data space. The reason why we extend our team with the digital expertise on both sides is to ensure that segmentation stretches to the non-survey databases that you use for targeting. And there are 4 topics to address. First, what databases and sources are being used in digital targeting? Are they internal, external? Who controls them, etc.? What is the database about? So what is in there? How can you access it? What are the costs, format, etc.? How can we create the link? There are different ways of how you can link. So we need to know how that best works for your partners and actually also who will make the link in the end. We need to be prepared for that. And there are various databases we can choose from, and just a few examples for inspiration and to give an idea. And let's start with the last one. We can link with CRM databases that are internally within your organization that you collect and use to direct your one-on-one contacts with your own clients. Next, in the middle, there are the DMPs. Those are the data warehouses that are useful for marketeers and other businesses. They're data management platforms, and they are a sort of hub where audiences are collected and marketing campaigns are launched, analyzed, and optimized. Examples of these DMPs are LiveRamp, BlueK, Axiom, Google, etc. And lastly, Synthesio, it's an Ipsos-owned company that we have proprietary access to. I will come back to this data in a minute. In essence, the process that we will be describing in this presentation will apply to any of these sort of databases. The actionability will highly depend on the content in it. So to clarify on Synthesio, it covers data on a wide range of websites visited, media behavior and interests ranging from TV shows, artists, music, hobbies, environment, health, food, etc. And its data is based on those with a Facebook account or those from allied digital platforms. The benefit of including Synthesio in this whole exercise is that many media agencies already use the same data based through Facebook Profiler to target audiences and to send communication in a way. Søren already gave a couple of examples from his own experiences. This means that we and agencies speak the same language when it comes to the target audience, and we can define them in a very similar way. To support all teams in defining the database to link to, we can agree on several criteria up front. And again, a few that we typically use is like whether a database fits with the final objective of this process. A simple example, if you want to activate the segmentation with media agencies, a CRM database is possibly not as useful. Also, the available data. Another example, if the CRM database has only email or name and phone number, this cannot be used to link with a set of segments from survey because we are clashing with GDPR. We need other behavioral elements as well. Also, the ease of access with DMPs is often the case. They store many databases, but users can't access the database themselves. It goes through the DMP company. This all, again, has to do with GDPR. So we need to know who has access to what. And also, like with any kind of data, costs are involved. DMPs make money with data as they will never offer this data for free. And depending on the above, we need to create a specific typing tool or allocation tool, and some databases use a more aggregate approach to classify data, others a more individual approach. Then going to the research stage. How is that actual research stage impacted when we want to make a connection between survey and other databases? The database provides us with what people do online, with which will tell us what sources to connect with, use to connect with your targets. The right reason why we need to understand these other databases is that we need to define variables or data points in that database that we can also measure in the survey. These common data points then, they become the key to unlock the database and connect it with our survey. So this means we need to make sure that these questions are incorporated from the start in the survey in a very similar format as they are in the database. Often, these data points refer to social demo and or some general behaviors. And those will be the unlocking variables in the end to connect both databases. But on top of that, in the survey, we want to add the category-specific needs, behaviors, motivations, and product choices. All in all, for this, we aim for a very concise and focused survey, maximum 15 minutes. And we can keep our survey concise as we only want to focus on what is not available in the database because we don't want to replicate too many data. We only want to duplicate, in a way, the key, the unlocking variables. All the rest we can either get from the survey and the others from the other databases. Having collected these specific data points, this means also we need to stop building segmentations purely based on needs or attitudes. We can never assume that needs or attitudes based segmentations automatically can be mapped onto a behavioral, transactional, or digital database. We all know from experience that needs-based segmentations not necessarily differentiate strong on social demo or behaviors, for instance. The only way to fix this is to combine needs, social demo, and or behaviors all in one segmentation to ensure our segments can be targeted and distinguished on other things that matter beyond needs. And especially on those key tangible variables that help us unlock the database. Once we have clearly distinguishable segments, we can define the algorithm or decision rules starting from these common unlocking variables to identify the segments in the database. Looking for people in the database that have the same characteristics as these segments. So here you've got an example of, from our survey, we've got a group of male, age 80 to 84. They've got a specific set of likes. Those variables are also in the other database. And then we start looking for male, aged 18 to 24, with specific likes in the other databases. From here, we have got two benefits. We can download all this data from the database to enrich our segments, and suddenly we have a far broader and richer descriptions of our segments and can directly use in workshops. And directly apply the segmentation to the database so it can be used for messaging and targeting. And of course, the variables used will depend on the data available in the database on your own or your agency side. Next brings us to the phase of activation and embedding and how we will deliver. We create for sure a set of decisions rules, or what we also sometimes call a typing tool, that can be used by the controllers or owners of the database. But one thing will remain the same, And that is, like in usual segmentations, we deliver rich persona with full segment profiles and descriptions, but now combining the survey data and the behavioral digital data. And these will form the base to familiarize your teams with the segments. And typical topics here, just a few that we find, for instance, in those digital databases like Synthesio. It's the interests people have, key brands in various categories they identify with, media types or titles, or influencers they like to keep in touch with across various topics. But of course, we shouldn't stop at delivering a report, neither at a workshop. We typically do more days to help prioritize the segments, bring them to life, or brainstorm about activation ideas and opportunities. We need to go one step further. In the end, we need to provide a more detailed and category-specific definition of tribes. These definitions typically start from are used in various platforms to find targets for personalized messaging. So in this example, it's all depending on the specific database, of course, we connect with. On the left-hand side, we have gotten a set of variables like age of either the parent and the child, and some broader category or broader interests. Based on the segmentation exercise, we can define a segment, a specific segment, much more precisely. That is a specific age of the parent, a specific age of the child, specific dietary interests, and other interests. But if we even build the enrichment with the digital data, the social demographics will be the same, but we can dive deeper into the specific interests of environment, health, cooking, and sports, etc., to precisely define what the specific audience is that belongs to a certain segment. But again, it's all connected. Every step builds on the other step. And as I mentioned, we will typically create a typing tool in the end to activate your segments for micro-targeting. It is essential that we deliver this, but also not only for the micro-targeting, but also to be applied in future studies. And finally, how this impacts segmentation. We need to work together with you and your teams on ways to actually use the segmentation in your daily process. We want to commit ourselves to support you in that as well, and to think along of how this can be impacted. And again, a few ideas of how that might work. First of all, it's the personalized messaging and communication. By thoroughly understanding these segments, we can also help you think about what kind of messaging, what is the content, the shape and the design of those messages. We can help you shape that for the specific segments. We don't have the communication design specialists, but we know the segments, so we can think along with you how that would resonate with the different segments. Similarly, on the planning of the media, we are not the media planners, but understanding the segments and how they are connected with media consumption, again, we can be sparing partners on how this will impact that process. Similarly, once we have defined the key targets and audiences and segments, we can also think along how could we track the success of these segments in the communication. And for that, we might need to involve other specialists as well. And how this impacts the innovation, the new product development process. How can we ignite the thinking and the brainstorming about new product concepts for these different segments? Which then concludes the specific approach to activate your segmentation for media planning. So again, to summarize 4 steps that we will take your teams through, from discovery and framing, understanding through the research, activation and embedding, and implementation, but each time with specific focus on the media targeting and how that will be impacted. We have worked this way with several other clients in various categories, sometimes with CRM databases, sometimes with media databases, to connect the segment definition for brand positioning with the other databases and impact the real business in the end. Which brings us to the end of our presentation, and I think now, Søren, we open up the floor for questions, right?